Dear students, it's time to practice unseen comprehension. Let us read this passage very carefully. The old lady was glad to be back at the block of flats where she lived. Her shopping had tired her and her basket had grown heavier with every step on the way home. In the lift, her thoughts were on lunch and a good rest, but when she got out at her own floor, both were forgotten in her sudden discovery that her front door was open. She was thinking that she must reprimand her maid the next morning for such a monstrous piece of negligence, when she remembered that she had gone after her maid had left and she had turned both the keys in the locks. She walked slowly into the hall and at once noticed that all the room doors were opened, yet following her regular practice, she had shut them before going out. Looking into the drawing room, she saw a scene of confusion over by her writing desk. It was as clear as daylight then that burglars had forced an entry in her absence. Her first impulse was to go around all the rooms looking for the thieves. But then she decided that at her age it might be more prudent to have someone with her. So she went to fetch the porter from the basement. By this time her legs were beginning to tremble, so she sat down and accepted a cup of very strong tea while she telephoned the police. Then her composure regained, she was ready to set off with the porter's assistance to search for any intruders who might still be lurking in her flat. So this old lady is a brave woman. She is independent, she lives alone and she is trembling in the beginning, but soon she regains her composure, her calmness, and then she does whatever is needed at that point of time. They went through the rooms, being careful to touch nothing, as they did not want to hinder the police in their search for fingerprints. The chaos was inconceivable. She had lived in the flat for 30 years and was a veritable magpie at hoarding, and it seemed as though everything she possessed had been tossed out and turned over and over. At least sorting out the things she should have discarded years ago was now being made easier for her. Then a police inspector arrived with a constable and she told them of her discovery of the ransacked flat. The inspector began to look for fingerprints while the constable checked that the front door locks had not been forced, thereby proving that the burglars had either used skeleton keys or entered through the balcony, duplicate keys or entered through the balcony. There was no trace of fingerprints, but the inspector found a dirty red bundle that contained jewelry which the old lady said was not hers. So their entry into this flat was apparently not the burglars' first job that day, and they must have been disturbed. The inspector then asked the lady to try to check what was missing by the next day and advised her not to stay alone in the flat for a few nights. The old lady thought that he was a fussy creature, but since the porter agreed with him, she rang up her daughter and asked for her help in what she described as a little spot of bother. Well, this is the passage, and now let us answer the following questions by choosing the most appropriate option. Now, you must read any passage, any unseen passage at least 2 to 3 times before beginning to answer the questions. And then read the questions and look for the lines which will substantiate your answer. For each of the word given below, choose the correct meaning as used in the passage from the options provided. Let us just read the options along with the questions, and then I will share the passage once again and we will discuss the answers. Reprimand, rebuke, praise, teach. Composure, nervousness, self-control, creation. Question 3. Hinder, dampen, hold, obstruct. Reprimand, that she must reprimand her maid the next morning. She must rebuke her maid. She must scold her maid the next morning. She will neither praise her nor teach her. Right answer, option 1. Composure. Then her composure regained. Self-control. She was no longer nervous. There is no question of creating anything here. Right answer, option 2. Self-control. Question 3. Hinder. They went through the rooms, being careful not to touch anything, as they did not want to hinder the police in their search for fingerprints. Now, what do you think? What is the meaning of hinder? They wanted to dampen the efforts, they wanted to hold the police, or they did not want to obstruct the police? Well, it is very easy. The right answer is option 3, obstruct. I will share the passage once again so that I can substantiate my answers. But before that, I will quickly read the questions and discuss the right answers with you. Why was the old lady glad to be back at her home? She had finished her shopping. Yes. It was night time, not mentioned in the passage. She was tired. Definitely. Some guests had arrived at her home. Well, we do not get this information also from the passage. Therefore, the right answer is, as you will see from the passage, she was tired. Option C. Why did she decide to scold her maid the next morning? Remember, reprimand, rebuke. She had not finished her household chores. She had left the house in a hurry. She had left the front door open. She had not come the day before. The right answer, option C. She had left the front door open. But soon the old lady realized that the maid had left before the old lady. So it was not her mistake. Now the next question, question D. The word which conveys a similar meaning as disorder is reprimand, chaos, lurking, prudent. What do you think? Disorder? It is option B, chaos. What was the proof that the burglars had a duplicate key, skeleton key? Skeleton doesn't mean the skeleton of a human being or the skeleton of the key. It is a duplicate key. They left a skeleton key behind. The front door was not forced. They left their fingerprints all over the place. The front lock was broken. The right answer, the front door was not forced. And then again, it's time for question F. Why is the phrase veritable magpie used for the old woman? As she was very old and weak like a magpie, as she was used to hoarding things, as she lived alone in her house, as her house had been ransacked by the thieves. The right answer, as she was used to hoarding things, option B. Next, G. Why did the lady not enter her own house by herself, as she was old and it was not wise to go inside alone, as she was trembling, as she wanted an eyewitness to the incident, or as the house was in a chaos? What is the right answer? As she was old and it was not wise to go inside alone. Option A. Well, now it's time to see the passage once again. Question B. Her shopping had tired her. She was tired. Option C. Next, question C. Why did she decide to scold her maid the next morning? Reprimand her maid the next morning for such a monstrous piece of negligence. And what was it? That her front door was open. Question D. Similar meaning, disorder, and the right answer is chaos. The chaos was inconceivable. See the line. Next, what was the proof that the burglars had a duplicate key? There was no use of force. This one, see, I have underlined. And then the next question, let's see what is it. Why is the phrase veritable magpie used for the woman? Because she was used to hoarding. It's written over here. Just have a look. She had lived in the flat for 30 years and was a veritable magpie at hoarding. Very clear. Why did the lady not enter her own house by herself? Her first impulse was to go around all the rooms looking for the thieves, but then she decided that at her old age, it might be more prudent to have someone with her. So she went to fetch the porter from the basement. The last question, question H. Who advised her not to stay alone in the flat for a few nights? What best summarizes the character of the old lady? This question carries 5 marks. The inspector and the porter advised her not to stay alone. The old lady was nervous, weak. The inspector alone advised her not to stay alone. And the old lady was definitely not nervous, weak, hence this is not the right answer. The inspector advised her not to stay alone. The old lady considered that the burglars put her in a little spot of bother, but was calm, composed, and handled the situation well. This option seems to be correct. The old lady's daughter advised her not to stay alone. This is also incorrect because the first part is incorrect. The old lady was not only physically weak but also fussy. No. Therefore, the right answer is option 2. The inspector advised her not to stay alone and she was calm, composed and handled the situation well. My dear students, this is the end of today's video. We will again practice another unseen comprehension very soon. Bye and stay connected and kindly subscribe to our channel Study English with Momita and Show Me.